Why do people become more silent as they grow older?
When I was little, I was an extremely outgoing child. I greeted every uncle and aunt I saw, and I made friends with every kid I met. If someone didn't pay attention to me, I would persist until I won them over. I also often interacted with adults. Thanks to my talkative nature and endless curiosity, I made many friends among the grown-ups, who would tell me stories about their travels, neighborhood issues, and delicious foods. I was carefree back then, and there was always something to talk about. My daily routine was nothing but chatter. One day, while having lunch at my grandma's house, she was too tired to cook, so she made instant noodles for me. At that time, instant noodles were the most delicious food in the world to me. When I got home, I excitedly told my mom about how good they were. I even discussed the cooking time and seasoning with her. However, as I spoke, I noticed my mom's expression darkening. I hesitated, thinking maybe she didn't like instant noodles, so I stopped talking and went to read in my room. Later, when my dad came home, my mom immediately started arguing with him, saying, "Why did your mom feed her instant noodles? Couldn't she cook a proper meal?" My dad didn't back down, and they argued all night. That was the first time I realized I might have said something wrong. Much later, I was again at my grandma's house having lunch. My sister and I decided to make instant noodles for a treat since we couldn't have them at home. Grandma said, "Don't make them, I'll cook for you." She made us noodles with 2 eggs each, and we ate heartily. That night, when my mom came home from work, she asked me what we had eaten at Grandma's. Remembering the previous argument, I cautiously said, "Grandma cooked some food and rice for us." My mom didn't say much and just sent me to my room. A while later, she made a phone call, and after hanging up, she stormed into my room and yelled at me for lying. She had cross-checked with my aunt, and my sister had told her we had eaten instant noodles. My mom accused me of lying and said that I was learning nothing good and called Grandma's family lazy. I cried and tried to explain that I had just wanted to avoid making her angry again, but she wouldn't listen, and sure enough, that night, my parents fought again. Later, I got scolded at my grandma's house. Feeling wronged, I hid in the bathroom to cry. My grandma found me and told me I couldn't go home because she feared I would tell my mom and cause another fight between my parents. She insisted I stay the night, but I couldn't sleep at other people's houses. I ended up sitting on the bed all night. That night, for the first time, I started to seriously consider whether I had outgrown the age where I could speak freely. Even though I was still just an elementary school kid, I was beginning to face complex family dynamics. At home, we had a small dog. One day, while playing with the dog, it accidentally bit me. I was scared, so I went to tell my mom. She glanced at the bite and said, "It's nothing, you won't die." I told her I was afraid, and she replied, "What's the point of being afraid?" I asked why I wasn't allowed to be scared, and she responded, "What good does fear do?" I realized that if I continued talking, I would get scolded again, so I stopped. But I dwelled on this for a long time, spending the next month or even a year in fear. I eventually realized that my mom didn't like me talking too much. The more I talked, the more likely I was to get scolded, so I gradually spoke less at home. At school, I still talked a lot with my close friends, but my language arts teacher didn't like me. She thought I was too rebellious for a girl my age. In her eyes, girls should be quiet and obedient, and playing around was something only boys should do. Because I played with my friends during recess, we often got scolded. One time, I wrote a short poem, and she accused me of plagiarism. I defended myself, saying it was my original work, but my homeroom teacher overheard and thought I was causing trouble for the language arts teacher. I was dragged to the front of the class and scolded for 20 minutes, but I stayed silent because I knew she wasn't interested in hearing my side. She was just using me as an example to warn the others. She told me to stand there until I admitted my mistake. That was the first time I genuinely disliked talking. Later, my family went through a rough patch, and I had to stay with relatives after I graduated from high school. I wanted to retake my college entrance exams because I hadn't been allowed to choose my preferred college, but my family insisted I was lucky to have even gotten into a second-tier school and refused to support me. Even though I had learned to speak less, I mustered the courage to express my desire to retake the exams. In response, my relatives kicked me out. My grandma even cursed me, saying I was the bad seed my mom had left behind. I ended up going to a school I didn't like, which led to endless depression and anxiety. I saw a doctor and was prescribed medication, but when I asked my family for money to buy the medicine, they said I was just being dramatic and told me to get over it without expensive meds. I tried to explain that my illness wasn't something I could just think away, but they dismissed me. That's when I finally understood. Some things can't be fixed by talking, and staying silent might be the only way to preserve the last bit of dignity I had left. To this day, my family accuses me of being antisocial, of refusing to talk or communicate, and they mock me for being stuck up and pretentious. I just look at them and nod silently.